Hello, my name is Katrina Moser. For many years, I taught a science based course on climate change. At one point, a student approached me to tell me that my course was causing them to be deeply depressed. I'm grateful to this student for sharing their feelings. She opened my eyes and helped me to realize that I was leaving my students in a very dark place. I realized that I needed to make changes to my course to empower my students to make changes themselves. So I reached out to Dr. Beth Hundey at the Center of Teaching and Learning, and we developed the Climate Change Challenge. The challenge starts with an in-class exercise where students calculate their own carbon footprints. This exercise helps students like Katrina Strafopoulos choose one thing they can do to most effectively reduce their own carbon footprint.
After calculating my carbon footprint, it was made clear that I was no exception to the statistics, with the vast majority of my emissions resulting from household energy and gas usage. As somebody who already avoids meat and regularly uses public transportation, it seemed most logical to try to reduce my energy usage in order to reduce my carbon emissions.
Students commit to their chosen activity for 3 weeks. Activities range from leaving their cars at home to air drying their clothes to becoming a vegetarian. Students create photographic journals of their 3-week journey using VoiceThread. Students have to do research to justify the activity that they choose and are encouraged to use a graphic to illustrate their justification. Watch as Sarah Brown explains the potential impact of her actions in the Climate Change Challenge.
The IPCC's Special Report on Climate Change and Land, which was published August 2019, has a figure showing the potential range of mitigation for different diet changes by 2050, and these values are based on scenarios presented in various literature sources. Vegan diets have the potential for higher greenhouse gas mitigation, around 7.8 total annual anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. This is higher than other animal product-based diets. For example, pescatarian, which was my diet pre-challenge, is approximately 4 total annual anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. Therefore, there is data to back up the potential mitigation of a diet change, but the main takeaway from this graph is that there's a lot of flexibility in what constitutes diet change in general, so it doesn't just have to be veganism. Veganism is a good way to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, but even a shift from pescatarian to flexitarian would make a big difference in reducing our carbon footprints.
Students are also asked to consider how they will measure their success and evaluate how they did on the Climate Change Challenge. Katrina explains how she tracked her progress.
In order to track my success with reducing energy usage, I went online to access my house records through London Hydro. The first thing I looked at was my records from the month of September. I needed to get a starting point of an average amount of energy my house would use for a normal 3 week time period before I began consciously reducing the energy usage. Upon looking at the daily usage rates, I saw that my house was using on average about 22.4 kilowatts per hour of energy per day for a random 3 week period in September. I then put this value into a greenhouse gas equivalency calculator and found that this was equivalent to about 0.016 metric tons of CO2 per day. While this value seems small, that adds up to 5.84 metric tons per year. I then went on to track my energy usage for the 3 weeks of the Climate Change Challenge. On average, I found that the amount of energy used was reduced to 16.3 kilowatts per hour per day. Again, using the calculator, this translates to about 0.012 metric tons of CO2. Over a year, this would add up to 4.38 metric tons.
What would be the effect if everyone in North America did their challenge for 1 year? Jessica Pariah and Hayden Hornick Mardick explain how individual action can make a difference when many people join in.
After doing some math, I found that 1,934,400 grams of carbon emissions could be saved if I continued this lifestyle for 1 year, and 1.12 trillion kilograms of carbon dioxide could be saved if everyone in North America continued this for 1 year.
Here I calculated how big of a reduction in my carbon footprint I'd have if I lived like this for a year. I found out that I would reduce my carbon emissions by 1.59 metric tons. I also calculated this number for if everyone in North America went vegan, and I got 893 million tons. This number is likely a little high though because I assumed all individuals were heavy meat eaters. However, I did factor in that about 3 to 4% of all North Americans are already vegan. This means that if all North Americans switched to a vegan diet for a year, the world's annual carbon dioxide emissions would drop just over 2%. And if everyone in the world were to switch to vegan, we could potentially reduce our global carbon emissions by over 10%.
Students reflect on their journey and provide a message they would like to share to the world. Here are what Katrina and Hayden shared.
If I could pass on one message from what I've learned through this challenge and through class material, it's that reducing your carbon footprint is a smaller task than you think. When somebody uses a website or a calculator to determine their carbon footprint and the numbers come out to be less than favorable, it's easy to get overwhelmed. It's easy to see that number and assume that you have to make drastic changes to your lifestyle in order to reduce it. When in reality, as I've learned through this project, the smallest things in your life really can have the biggest impact. It's important not to get caught up in those initial negative feelings and to just focus on what you can do within your power. Thanks for watching my presentation, and don't forget to turn off the lights.
Finally, I think everyone should try to reduce their carbon footprint, especially the people who live in wealthier countries as we do. I think it's best if we stay below 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial temperatures. This is still doable, but it is getting more unlikely every day, which is why I think people need to start considering they might have to change their lifestyle a little bit. It scares me that if we go past this mark, we don't know what happens, and we likely won't until it's too late. I also really feel for the smaller island countries who are already being flooded and forced to relocate into other parts of the world with not a ton of money. I guarantee that if this was your own family, you would want people to help you just so that you can have a chance. But the more I learn about global warming and climate change, I realize people don't care about stuff like this until it directly affects them most of the time, which is far too late to prevent it from happening or even significantly mitigate the effects. To conclude, I think everyone shares some level of responsibility in reducing their carbon footprint, and I also think it is something that should be done immediately because, like I said, if it were your family or your belongings, you wouldn't be doing nothing.
There are also side benefits to this exercise. Here are examples from Jessica and Hayden.
There were definitely many perks of doing this challenge. One of the perks was just seeing the nature and being able to observe everything that's around me, what I would have missed had I taken the bus. Another perk of this was just the mental relief I got, the stress reliever it gave me when I was walking to school. I was able to kind of de-stress, just listen to music and kind of relax a little, so that definitely helped my mental health.
I found this challenge to be very rewarding. I enjoyed that I was introduced to lots of new foods and I was pleasantly surprised with how good a lot of the vegan dishes were. I've displayed a couple of the dishes here so you guys could get a sense of what I was eating. I also found myself eating a lot healthier and therefore feeling a lot better, which I was super pleased with. Additionally, I felt better about what I was consuming because it felt like I was doing something to make a difference, even if it was just something little. I also enjoyed that this challenge forced me into the kitchen. I really love cooking, but sometimes if I were busy, I would sacrifice that for other things and I wouldn't cook for a few days, so it was a nice change. After doing this, I think I'm going to try continuing to eat vegan every day because I think the challenge is not only good for the environment, but good for me too.
To end the climate change challenge, we regroup in class to have a discussion to talk about what we learned. The climate change challenge is a relatively simple experiential assessment that reinforces several concepts from class and shows students the importance and impact of their own individual actions. Thanks to all the students who helped make the climate change challenge a success.